Welcome back to the channel, everyone. So I hope that intro gave you a sense of just how much fun we had in here the other day during the photo shoot with all these mods. It was a blast. I was wanting to put together a shoot just to kind of show off different mods and different ways we can use them. It's been about a year since I started shipping these out to everyone, and it's been quite the learning experience on the business end and answering a lot of questions that I've come across from y'all, and then seeing some results that y'all have been putting out, and it's been a lot of fun. But I thought it was a good time to get together, kind of pull in a lot of information that I've learned over the year so I can give you some tips and tricks, answer a bunch of frequently asked questions, and kind of go over different ways to be creative with these mods. So let's just kind of jump right into it. And if there's one thing that I want y'all to pick up from this video, it's that these mods have a outside and a inside. The outside is the fabric, kind of the texture here. It's more of a matte finish. The inside has this rubbery texture that prevents the light from coming through this specialized fabric. You'll also find the labels on the inside, like it says right here, on the inside of the mod. So when you make your corners on these mods, you're gonna want them to go in like this, like you see this mod behind me, and it's gonna be flush to the front of the box. That way, well, let me just show you. When you put it on backwards, the mod goes into the box and is pressed up against the diffusion material. And you're also lighting the edges of your box. So if any of y'all have done this, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So this is the front and this is the back. So just make sure you don't see any of the labels and you've got it on right. Let me just, while I'm sitting here with this mod here, I'm not gonna do a full how to install video. There are two of those on the how to install page of the website. So check those out. I haven't done a strip mod on there, but they're really easy and they follow the same principles as the other ones. So to start, you want to just center your mod on the front of the box. Let me rotate this a little bit. And when it's centered in here and the Velcro is not touching the mod, just let the mod hang down in the box and then come to the halfway point of your mod. In this case, this is the 1x3, so the middle of the mod is right here. So then I attach it on one side and then I work it back up to the top, and then I come to the other side, attach it right in the middle, and then work it straight back up to the top, and then I come to this side, and then go down to the bottom, and then the exact same thing on this side. And then I pinch the corners. Also what I'll do is then I'll turn on the modeling lamp, check the edges of my box. If there's any light coming through the edges, I will touch the Velcro and get that sealed tight, so no light is coming through these edges, and that'll save you a lot of time in post. And that pretty much takes care of getting these on here. Sometimes you might find that something's a little bit off, and then you can unvelcro it and then Velcro it back, and then you just kind of stand back and make sure your circles are as circular as possible. Now let me turn this light off. Since I'm running the modeling lamp, it had that fan that you might have been picking up on the audio, but I wanted to use that to show how to mount those. All right, so let's talk about the boxes. And we're getting pretty close to where there will be in this case, this is a Westcott box. This is one of their rapid boxes. I've also got right here at my feet, one of the small rig boxes. And these are both boxes that have the kind of quick assembly, but this one just pops down, and then when you want to set it up, you just pull these and these pop into place. The Westcott is what they call a rapid box. So inside you got a post in here that is a quick release, and so when you're done you can just quick release it. I normally take the mods off though, but I'm just doing this real quick to show y'all. And then when you're ready to set back up, you just pop it back on and you're good to go. Now both of these kind of rapid, easy style boxes are going to be a little more expensive than your old school kind of 4-pole type boxes. So it's kind of your call. And I think over the long term, especially when boxes are high quality like these Westcotts, I think you're going to get your money back in the time that you spend putting together these boxes in comparison to these boxes. So just think about that. You know, sometimes it might be a thing where maybe you get one of these and a couple of these, and then over time you just add to your arsenal of these quick, like rapid style boxes that you can take down and put up very quickly. I know that's one of the headaches of using these and increasing your setup time by having to build all these different boxes. And these boxes right here are the solution for that. Another note, when you are using these style boxes, because I've noticed some people don't get them quite tight enough, you want to, so the Godox ring here has got numbers on it, and the magic number for like the 3x3 is the number 2. And so you want to put your post in those numbers, and that'll make sure that your box is super tight. Let me grab one. So this is a properly put together 4-post box. And it's number 2 on the 3x3, and it's number 1 on the 2x3. And I can see the numbers right back here on the speed ring. When you have it put together correctly, it's tight. There's not any slack in here. I see some people, when I see their soft boxes, they look like they're sagging here. When you get these in the right holes, you're not going to get any sag. You're going to be able to use this in a horizontal orientation and a vertical orientation perfectly fine. So if your box is saggy, check where you put these posts in. Make sure you got, as I said, in the 2x3, it's in the number 1 holes, and the 3x3, they go in the number 2 holes. So I have seen people come across that, or seen people have trouble with that. And it's understandable. These are not the easiest things to deal with. And some people just have never put them together before. And that is just something you have to pay attention to, the tightness of these boxes. And when it comes to the boxes, I've got a full list on the how to install / recommended softbox page of the website where you can find the size of the mod that you're using or want to get. And I've got a list of recommendations for softboxes with links on there. So you can click on there. And I've been trying my best to keep those links active. It's kind of hard to keep up with some of these websites and how they change their links, but most of those should be active as of now. And let me say too that I'm going to leave links to everything that we discuss here in the description down below. All right, so let's jump to, I guess, general mod care, for lack of a better way to put it. So when you're done with your photo shoot, I recommend taking them off. When you have these kind of rapid style boxes, it's super easy to pop those up and then put them back on. You can collapse them in there and go the quick way. If you're going to go that route, what I would do is the first thing when I get to set, I would pop those open, stick them on your stands, and then go do everything else. This is a fabric material, so if you bunch it up, it will wrinkle. It doesn't have a very long memory, so when you do pop it onto your box and you let it sit there for a while, those wrinkles will eventually leave your box. But it's best to kind of take care of them on the front end. So don't just bunch them up and throw them into your bag. What I would recommend, either one of 2 ways. Either you fold it up in a couple of folds. Like this is a 1x3, I believe, here. And just like this. And I would put it in my bag. I wouldn't put a bunch of weight on top of it. I'd maybe put this in my bag last, just so it's on top of everything. I keep everything in like a rolling stand bag for the most part. Or you could probably put these in a light case on top. I just wouldn't squish anything down on them. Another way that I like to store them is I like to roll them. All right, so to roll them up, you just roll the inside to the inside and the outside to the outside. So hopefully we learned that lesson from the very beginning of this video. And once you get it rolled together, it makes a nice little, kind of neat little tube here. And then I like to roll to the labels here, so then when you go to grab them, you know exactly what the size is. Just make sure when you stick it in your bag that you're not putting everything on top of it, because it will press down, especially on the Velcro edges, and it will kind of kink this up and make it a little more difficult to install when you put it on your box again. All right, so let me get this box out of the way. Another very frequently asked question is, how far should I place my model from my mods? My sweet spot is probably from, I would say, around 5 to 7 feet, and it really depends on what look you're going for. I've photographed, like when I first started using them, I had the football players come from between the mods, and they look great all the way through. And it's just a matter of the style you're looking to do. I think these days what I've been doing is placing my subject probably about right in here, which is probably 5 to 6 feet from my mods there. And then in my camera, I'm shooting for around 5.6 to probably 6.3, and that softens these up just a little bit and kind of gives them just a little, you get a little more depth there, and that also gives you room for any kind of atmospheric effects that you want to do. But before we jump into the atmosphere section of this video, let's talk about the power that we're going to run these mods on. What I like to do is set them probably 1 to 2 stops above kind of what my base exposure is. And there's no real secret formula to that. What I recommend you do is when you set up everything, you set your lights for your subject first. These mods are not magic bullets. They're not going to make a badly exposed subject look good because you've got a bunch of bright lights behind them. The way I like to do it is expose my subject correctly, and then I'll add my mods in, and I will make sure that they are exposed probably close to 2 stops over what I'm doing with my subject. So if my key light on my subject is like on these, if it's at maybe 5, I would have those at probably 6.5 or 7. And it's all to taste, so you got to kind of feel it out and see what's looking good in your images. But a real rule of thumb is that if you can see that diffusion material in the modifier, when you actually set it off, that is way underexposed. And we need to remember that these are replicating stadium lights. So when you look up at stadium lights, they are super bright. So that's kind of what, or stage lights. And that's what we're recreating with these modifiers. They are there to do that function, give us that kind of big game type feel or stage set type feel. And if you've got them too low, all they are is just black circles with white material behind them, and it's not doing at least what I initially created them to do. So give those lights plenty of power and make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to do. And that also brings me to the question of what size or what power strobes to use. So obviously your 600s would be good. The Pro Photos, which are 500s, they work perfectly fine. The 400s, like these Westcotts and the Godox, they work perfectly fine. And the 200 watt lights will work perfectly fine. You might find that if you're using 200 watts or lower, that you might need to compensate in the camera. And I would just recommend maybe going up in ISO, not changing your f-stop if you want to stay in a certain area. And so that way, especially if you're using batteries, you're not taxing your lights too much, and where you're gonna have to worry about batteries throughout your entire shoot. So think about that. In these modern days with the digital cameras we're using, I don't think you can really tell from 100 ISO to probably 400, maybe even 800, and that's giving you several stops of light that will more than compensate for a power difference on your strobe. So if you want to save a little money, use some 200 watt lights, go ahead and go for it. Just make sure that you are adjusting yourself appropriately. All right, so let's talk about atmosphere. Atmosphere gives us that really kind of otherworldly, I guess, experience that you can provide for your clients and your subjects on set. And there's several different ways to achieve that. And as I mentioned, I like to position my subject, give like a 5-foot barrier between them and the lights. That way, if I'm doing something even as little as a Pro Mist filter, so this is a 1/8 Pro Mist, which will flare those lights, and I'll show some examples on the screen. But if I'm using that, I've got them usually far enough out from the lights to where the bloom is not wrecking the contrast on my subject. And this is great. These are great tools. I like the 1/8. You can go from an 1/8 to like a 1/4 and a half. I just feel like when you get stronger than an 1/8, it gets a little bit too misty, I guess, for lack of a better word. Okay, and then you can use in conjunction with this or just by itself. These atmosphere aerosol cans are fantastic for smaller spaces like I've got here in my studio, where I don't have a lot of real estate that I've got to cover with smoke. These are fantastic. I recommend you grab you a couple of these handles when you get them. They make, I kind of call these your finger savers, because if you're pushing these smoke cans all day long, it starts to kind of wear on your finger a little bit. But pick up these handles, and this is what I use for any of these smaller spaces, and even larger spaces. If you don't have a lot of airflow, go with that, or if you're worried about fire alarms and that type of thing. In those larger spaces, like I showed in my football shoot here with the Gamecocks last year, where I had that huge wall of mods and it was just not feasible to use the canned smoke, that's where I used a smoke machine, and I will link that down below. One of the keys I found with using a smoke machine is that it was great, I thought, to have one that has a remote, and so I'll link that model down below, and I'll link the atmosphere aerosol down below. I believe I've got a promo code for this where you can save a little money on it, so use those links down below. And the third option, once again, is a Pro Mist filter. All right, so let's move to stands. And there's a great debate on whether or not you want to keep your stands in the frame or take them out of the frame, or in post, or you can run some fabric material to hide them during your shoots. I think it's 100% personal preference. I've done shoots where I use chrome stands so that they were part of the background with the mods. And that's kind of, I guess, coming from, I've been on movie sets and stuff like that where I was shooting stills, but they were using the lights in the frame, like during commercials and stuff like that. And you always see the stands holding those lights, and they're massive stands, and they're usually chrome, and they're just kind of part of the setup. So when I'm keeping the stands in my setups, that's kind of where I'm going back to. But I know a lot of y'all like to take them out, so a good thing to do is use black stands, and then maybe you can do some tricks like using a backdrop stand with a lower backdrop that you can use to hide the stands. The particular stands, I've also been asked this as well, because some of us like to kind of stack mods together like I've got them here, where they're lined up perfectly in sync. So you could have a couple of the 3x3s. I'm just showing off different models here, but you could have 2 3x3s right on top of each other, creating a light bank. And if you go back to, I guess, probably one of the first reels on the ProLight Mod IG account, you'll see that I was just stacking regular light stands kind of as close as I could to one another, to where I could get them as lined up as possible. And that's before I knew that these Manfrotto column stands existed. I'm lifting this up, where you can get these sliding grips. And this way you can light, let's see if you can see that there. This way you can mount 2 strobes to one stand, and these also have extensions like I have back there. So this extension goes on here, so then you can take this mount up as high as you'd like to take it up, and then that gives you room to maneuver with this bottom one as well. But these are fantastic. Once again, I'll link these below. They've got wheels that come on them, so you can roll them around, mix things up if you want to during your shoots. They just give you a lot of options. All right, so while I was messing with the stand, I figured I would just show you how it looks with a couple of strobes mounted on it. And these can be mounted conventionally, like stacked right on top of each other, or you can do some other kind of configurations where you stick them off to one side of each other. You can work these handles, and so you got a couple pivot points. You've got one here where the handle's connected to the stand, and then you've got one where your strobe is. So you can slide these out, do different things. You can angle them certain directions. You might see where we did some stuff with like an X. I'll show that. I'll show some different ones here in a minute. But you can loosen up these mounts. So you can do all kinds of different layouts just with the stands here and the mounts, and do different things just coming up with different ideas for different layouts. And speaking of that, I think that's kind of what the beauty is of these light modifiers and having these different sizes, is where we can get a group of these things together and create different types of backdrops. And just because you might have the same light mods as someone else doesn't mean that your photos are going to look the same, because you can position them in all kinds of different layouts behind your subjects and just get creative with it. I'll show some different backdrops that I've used, I guess, here recently. And another option to spice things up is to use gels. I've seen a lot of people use different colored gels based off of who they're working with, and have really been creative with colored lighting with their subjects. So these things work great with gels. You can gel right in them, or you can add extra lights to gel your subjects. And when you put that atmosphere in, either with any of those ways, that atmosphere is what really picks up that color, and you can just create just a dynamic environment for your photos. All right, before we jump into the behind the scenes, I was going to run y'all through real quick how I'd set up everything for the shoot that you saw at the beginning of this video. I just want to talk about a couple resources. The Instagram page, the ProLight Mod, at ProLight Mods on Instagram. And then we have a great user group over on Facebook. And I can't thank people enough over there for helping out everyone that goes in and asks questions and gives positive feedback. But that is the ProLight Mods user group on Facebook. Just ask to join there and we'll let you in, and you can see a lot of examples, get a lot of feedback, probably a lot of answers to questions maybe that I missed here in this video. But it's been a great spot, and I couldn't be happier about that. Okay, so let's jump from here to a little walkthrough of the set from yesterday. All right, so let's take a look at this setup. I'm gonna drop you down. This is probably more of the angle I was shooting from, the camera angle. And you can see that X pattern back there that I created with the 4 1x4 mods. And we'll get to that in a second. As far as gear is concerned, I was using a combination of the Westcott FJ400s, and then back over there, I was using 2 of the 200s for kind of my edge lights and reflectors. Let's go back here. So my main light is in the Joel Grimes Westcott Beauty Dish here with the 400, and this is boomed on my Cambo Boom, which I will link below in the description. I get a lot of questions about these booms. And behind me, which would be camera left and right, I've got 2 1x3s with mods in them. The mask on those helmets were very reflective, so I wanted to, instead of having a big umbrella or round softbox over here, I wanted to put something in the mask that kind of made sense and completed the overall look that we were going for, and I wouldn't have to Photoshop it after the fact. So I've got 2 of those on either side. And this, as you could tell from most of the pictures, my fill lighting was pretty low, as we were going for some dramatic backlighting images for the most part. Okay, over top here I've got a 1x4, and this is using another one of the mods, and this is, I put this mod up here because the top of the helmet was reflective, and I wanted to, instead of having a big umbrella reflection in the top of the helmet or a big softbox, this kind of gives us that same stadium light look that we're generating all over the place in here. So for uniformity, I put a mod up there. There's something to think about if you have access to extra mods. Obviously I do. You can use them for reflective purposes like that. I have a video up that when I first did that was for the NHL, one of the NHL photo shoots where I needed that reflection in the mask instead of having a big round reflection that would come from something like this. But that is also boomed from one of the Cambo booms. So I've got 2 of those booms working here. These are fantastic. I can raise and lower that depending on what's going on set. All right, so let's get back here to where the main action's happening. And I've got 4 FJ400s with the 1x4 boxes. Down here, I've got the Westcott 1x4s, and up top, I've got these small rigs. So you can see 2 different kind of quick style, easy to use boxes working right here in tandem. You can also, instead of using the 1x4s for a design like this, you could also use 1x3s. So if you've got a smaller group or smaller, or you just don't want something as big as this. This is, you got 4 feet, probably 10 feet on each one of these spans. And so you can shrink that, do the same thing with the 1x3s. So you have options. And as I pointed out earlier, I've got the FJ200s here in reflectors, and these were given kind of a edge light to my subjects, and just kind of complementing what was going on with this in the background. So let me back up one more time so you can kind of see what was behind my model there. And then let's look from this point of view. This is what my subjects were seeing. Then we'll walk over here. This is my tether station, and I just want to show just how good these images look right out of camera. And so this is what my subjects are seeing, client. And that's the magic of using these light mods, is they look just so fantastic straight out of camera. All right, so I hope I've done my best here to answer some questions, show y'all what I go through, what I do using these ProLight mods, and I hope you feel inspired after watching this video. And I look forward to seeing more and more of your content as we go forward. So if you feel like this video has been helpful and worthy, please give it that thumbs up. If you want to see more content like this in the future, hit that subscribe button down there and the little bell next to it so YouTube will let you know when I'm back here. In the meantime, as I mentioned, you can find me over on @ProLightMods on Instagram, as well as @QuantsPhoto. Check out that Facebook user group, ProLight Mod Users on Facebook. If you got any more questions, drop those down below, and I'll see what I can do about answering them to the best of my ability. And otherwise, y'all please stay safe and healthy out there, and I will see you soon in the next one.